Okay, welcome back. We're on page 222 talking about adding trend lines. And this is not a math course, so I'm not going to get into the whole issue of linear versus, exponential and all the rest of that junk. Bottom line is the purpose for adding a trend line typically is to draw attention to a pattern, perhaps because the pattern was not immediately discernible. In this case, it looks fairly discernible, but there could be other scenarios where it's not. Okay. So, which is kind of a good segue onto the next section, talking about adding emphasis. On page 223, there's a lot of things you can do to try to add emphasis to something. One is, the color and the text, making something bold. Let's go to one of these other guys. Let's say, for example, that, this is kind of a dumb one, but, clicking on one of these changes and changing the color of a particular item. I want this to be bright red. So I'm going to go here to, format the data series, and we're going to go in here and grab a fill, and so I want to pick a solid fill color, and we're going to make this thing, bright in-your-face red. Okay! That's a way to add emphasis to something. Another way to do it is, if this one particular item here, was more important than some of the others, I could go in here and click. This is a text format entry. And I can go in here and change it to different types. I can go into the text guy. I can go back to here and say I want this to be bold, or bold or larger, again. So you're just drawing attention to something by either changing the color or the text or things of that nature. Again, this is not rocket surgery. Let's go back to the pie chart. One of the things that's kind of cool, in the 2013 version of a pie chart, you single click to get the pie, and click again to get just the one piece, and then you just drag and drop this guy out to make an exploded pie. Now, you can do that here. There's also ways you can go in here and tell the chart exactly which one you want. But isn't that pretty cool? I'm going to do that again. I'm going to hit, it's a two-step process. Whoa, I didn't mean to go back that far. So the first click is to click, and notice it highlights all of them. And the second click is to pick the one that you want to draw attention to, like this one. So now I only have one of them selected. And now I quite literally just drag and drop it the way I want it. Kind of cool, huh? All right, so that's drawing emphasis. 3D effects. I kind of like 3D effects when it comes to like pie charts. I don't know why. I just kind of like them. So I'm going to go back here to design, and I'm going to change the chart type. And when you get down to the pies, you can tell it you want a 3D pie. Okay, ooh, because I struck this guy out, it decided I need to do all that. Oh well. Anyway, you can pick different colors and different kinds of pies and all that kind of junk. Anyway, the idea is that trying to make this thing visually appealing. On page 221, again, they're talking about effect, not 221, 227. There's a whole section, table 1. Talks about effective charts, and that's a good stuff in here, and it basically talks about everything we just said about when you're doing a pie chart. You might want to consider exploding a particular pie. When you're doing bar or column, you might want to talk about color to emphasize whatever it is you're trying to do. When you're doing a line, you can pick a particular line and change its thickness. The line width is here's one. Let me move this out of the way because we're getting kind of clumsy here. So for example, clicking on the data element itself, I can go in here and, tell it exactly what I want. And one of the line styles is this thing called the width. And I can go in here and make this thing a lot bigger. So it's a lot fatter. So, boom. So if you have lots of lines on here, you can draw emphasis by making one of them bigger. When it comes to a scatter plot, adding a trend line would actually make things better. So that tends to make effective charts. So that table 1 in there is pretty cool. Next, they talk about a bunch of gee whiz stuff, which is kind of weird. I don't use this much, but hey, what the heck? Okay, let's say, for example, that I wanted to have a thing called a spark line. What the heck is a spark line? I don't know. It's a strange term. Basically what it means is that I can show a series of basically a miniature chart inside a cell. Okay, inside a single cell, I can show a miniature chart. Okay, So I'm going to do it. I'm going to grab this and just kind of highlight. I'll tell you what, we're not going to do them all. I'm just going to grab a handful of these guys, okay? So I want to do insert, and one of the things we can do here is a spark line. So I'm going to pick the line style spark line, and then it's going to say, where is the data? Okay, well, the data is going to be this part. And what it basically did is it just put a little miniature chart in here inside a cell, okay? And that is a lot of gee whiz factor to this. If you're trying to show off somebody, hey, I'm an Excel expert, you know, look at these cool stuff. You might be successful at telling people that you really know Excel, but how useful this is, nah. Now you might notice, for example, it would be somewhat irrelevant to pick the data type, you know, I mean the x-axis and the y-axis and the headings, because it's this tiny, tiny little guy here. You don't really have room for any words whatsoever. So these little spark lines are kind of cool. There's another type of thing you can do. Is remember when we did the conditional formatting? So I'm going to grab one of these. I don't know which one. I'm going to grab these guys. And so remember when we did formatting, the Home tab, and go to conditional formatting. So there's lots of different types, and one of them is called color bars. And so I'm just going to go, I'm sorry, data bars. One of them, go to data bars, and I'm going to pick this green thing, okay? And what that basically did is it looked at the data inside here and drew like a completion bar, and basically shows you like this 420 is a smaller number, and looks like the 582. And once again, okay, it's impressive, but how useful is it in real life? Because most of the time, customers don't actually see the Excel spreadsheet itself. Typically, they see the product of the Excel spreadsheet, like, you know, the balance sheet or some chart or something in a PowerPoint presentation. You know, when I was doing this kind of stuff for a living, I very rarely said, hey, boss, come over here and look at my Excel spreadsheet with all this stuff. Because they weren't interested in that. What they were interested in is showing that PowerPoint slide with the profit loss statement, okay? So I would have never had an opportunity to show these things. But what the heck? Spark lines and data bars, some people love them. Okay, the last thing to talk about is printing. So here's a cool thing I want to show you. I'm going to go back to one of these that has a chart. So I'm going to grab this guy, and I'm just clicking anywhere inside the chart. And if I go to File and Print, it has automatically figured out, because I clicked inside the inside the chart, it has automatically figured out that I wanted to print the selected chart. Okay, isn't that pretty cool? So now I can just hit the print button and go on about my business. If you didn't do that, then you'd have to kind of go back. You know, if you had not selected that, then you'd kind of have to go, because, you know, otherwise you're going to get all sorts of weird stuff in here. If I did not click that and say, okay, now I want to print this, let's see what it does. He goes, okay, and you go, oh man, you know, so that's not good. Okay, so kind of more philosophy. On page 232, there's some excellent list of what they call common chart issues, and this is good stuff. So I want you to kind of pay attention. One of the things that you can do wrong by producing a chart. One is there's not enough context. I see a bar chart, but I don't have a clue what it is you're trying to tell me. Is that dollars? Is that age? Is that kumquats? I can't tell. There's not enough information there for me to look at. There's not enough context. So I'm looking at it going, okay, something is going up and something is going down. It'd be kind of cool to know which one was which. The exact opposite is you've got something that is so busy and so many moving parts and so many colors that you have just information overload. You're looking at it going, I don't know what the heck this is. My head hurts. The next one is the wrong type of chart. Chart type is kind of a big deal with me. So if you're trying to show, for example, as I did when I in the syllabus, I showed you know a pie chart. I show for what percent of grade kind of thing. Readability. You could have these things so well done and so that the text is so small because you crammed everything in there that you need binoculars in the conference room to be able to read what it says. So yeah, The words, you make sure you don't have bizarre abbreviations, things of that nature, and the text is easy to read. For example, we changed the this dates at an angle so they make them more readable because they were just overlapping each other. Okay, so readability. And the last one they talk about is misleading. You don't ever want to have a data point where you fake it. I have seen people, in fact, there was a, let's say, for example, let's do data labels on here for no particular reason. Okay, so I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to say my data labels, and I'm going to put them on. Wow. Okay, here. Let's say, for example, that this 91 was actually an 81. So I go in here and I click on that one little label, and I change this thing to read, whoop, I can't, I guess I overdid it. Okay, well, my point was, you know, go in here and change that label to read 81, where in reality it's actually a 91. Yeah, I would accuse you of trying to sneak something past me. So yes, misleading data, very bad. In fact, you know, in the corporate world, you could kind of sort of go to jail for that kind of shenanigans. So kind of pay attention to that. Okay, we have reached the end of this chapter. This wasn't necessarily a technical chapter. A lot of good stuff in here, and unfortunately, I'll admit that the 2013 version with the cool little doodad over here in the corner, when you the quick analysis tool would have made this a little easier. But hey, you can do practically everything inside the 2010 version. It's just a slightly different technique, and I'm not all that keen on technique. I'm more keen on why you'd want to do one chart type versus another chart type. Okay, so see you guys again in some future video.